Welcome back, travelers. I'm glad to see you made it. I'm Colo, and today you can see we're doing something a little bit different. I've got a presentation for you about everybody's favorite spell, Fireball! So what the heck is it, and why does everybody like it so much? Let's take a look. The description of Fireball from the actual Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition handbook is as follows. A bright streak flashes from your pointing finger to a point you choose within range, and then blossoms with a low roar into an explosion of flame. So there's a couple of things that we can get and infer just from that description itself. First of all, I want you to imagine you get in an argument with somebody, and this person is standing across the room from you, and they point their finger and then say some shenanigans you don't understand, and then all of a sudden, a bright flash of flame happens next to you and explodes. Boom! Right next to your feet. The blast radius is going to be 20 feet or about 6 meters, and everything within this area is going to have to make a dexterity save. If you pass the dexterity save, you still take half damage. The base damage is 8d6 fire damage, which is ridiculously good. So if you pass the dexterity saving throw, you would only take half of whatever that roll is. In order to put that in perspective compared to a real life thing, grenades, which I've represented with a picture of a pineapple right here, in D&D only deal 5d6 piercing damage. That's from fragments of the grenade exploding out. I would understand if the grenade did fire damage, or a little bit of fire, a little bit of piercing, something like that, just depending on what kind of grenade it is. But fragmentation grenades in 5th edition deal 5d6 piercing in the same 20-foot radius, so about 6 meters again. So this means that Fireball deals 3 more dice worth of freaking damage than a grenade does. In real life, a grenade has a kill radius of 5 meters, which apparently means that there's a 50% chance that anything within 5 meters will be instantly killed. And then the injury radius is way bigger than that, from potential concussive force or fragments flying out of the grenade and injuring you, whatever. Other things getting knocked down, I'm sure, but the injury radius is way higher than the 5 meter almost guaranteed kill radius. If you look right here, we have a picture of the bat symbol and a steaming pile of shit. That is to represent the materials that you need to cast the spell, because in 5th edition you actually need materials to cast spells with, and the material components of Fireball are a little bit of sulfur and a ball of bat guano. And people make jokes about that all the time, saying that the damage is batshit insane. This is a crudely drawn headband from Naruto, for anyone who could tell what my freaking terrible drawing was. That's on there to represent the hand signs that you have to do to cast the spell, because once again, in 5th edition, there are material components, verbal components, and then somatic components, which would be hand signs, some kind of gesture you have to make with your hands. So, Wingardium Leviosa! You know what I'm talking about. And then for the verbal component, I put a guy screaming out, Fireball, baby, because, I mean, obviously that's what you would say if you were going to cast a fireball. Fireball, baby! In the actual description of the spell, it states that when the explosion lands, let me grab my red marker for this. Say you targeted your explosion here. This is the corner of a wall. When the explosion lands, it's going to explode, and then the fire will actually travel around corners to damage things on the other side of the corner. And as you can see, that's nuts. Everything that is not being held by a player character or an NPC will be set aflame by this fireball. So I looked up different variations of fire. Temperature is usually based on what color the fire is, and the fire colors that we normally see are going to be red, orange, and yellow. And most of the time, the maximum heat of flames that are those colors is around 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, so 1,100 degrees Celsius. And that is instantaneous. As soon as that thing lands, boop, kaboom, it's all of a sudden 2,000 degrees in that 20-foot radius. So any self-plugged merchandise that's sitting on the ground will catch on fire. All different kinds of effects that go down because flames engulfed everything in the area. Imagine that. Immediately having a 2,000-degree Fahrenheit explosion happen next to you instantaneously. The spell's instantaneous, so bing bang boom, pow, explosion. If you were standing right next to that, all of the hair would be burned off your body. Your clothes would probably be burned off or on fire for sure. Your skin would dry and crack immediately, and the fat underneath your skin would actually liquefy and catch on fire, and you would basically turn into a damn candle. You don't want this to happen to you in real life. This is not a good time. A lot of times people underestimate Fireball as a potentially dangerous spell because of the way that certain fireballs are portrayed in other games and other media. I want you to think for a second about Mario and how he throws fireballs. So, those things don't really look super threatening. It looks like if one of these things flew over and hit you, you would be mildly inconvenienced by it, even though in the game you're one-shotting enemies with those fireballs. It just doesn't look that threatening. This fireball is not like that. This is a freaking bomb going off next to your feet, and you would immediately have your day ruined. In real life, you're dead from this. There's no surviving this spell in real life, because the average person is going to have about 4 health based on what people are telling me in the comments and what I can find from my research. Commoners have about 4 health. So you're trying to survive 6 to 48 fire damage on a failed save, and then if you pass the save, it's still half of that. So your odds of surviving this in real life are almost 0. You would be absolutely destroyed by this thing. In Dungeons & Dragons, this is probably the worst part of the diagram that I've drawn here. In D&D, it's actually specifically been stated that there is no concussive force part of the spell. So when the explosion goes off next to you, it's fire damage you take. It's not thunder damage, it's not force damage, anything like that. You're taking fire damage. You get burned, but it's not blasting you to pieces in the game. In real life, absolutely you would get blasted to pieces by this thing. And this right here, this is a terribly drawn diagram of an explosion happening and the concussive force ricocheting off the walls like a freaking ping pong ball, and you would get hit by that blast multiple times as it reverberates around the room, just absolutely pulverizing your body. So all those jokes about people saying, I didn't ask how big the room was, I said cast fireball, that would definitely come into play right here. In a tiny room, you would get freaking blown to smithereens by this thing. Even if you survived the initial hit, which you would not, you would still die from all the reverberating damage beating you to pieces, basically. So, to recap, we have some batshit crazy damage, a guy screaming fireball baby, which, you know, I just wanted to point that out because I think it's really good. This guy, he knows what's up. He knows what he likes. He likes fireball. All right, a point that you choose, 20-foot explosion, everybody in there, deck save, basically like a grenade going on off in your face, some nuts, and then everything reverberates around and you get beaten to pieces and set on fire. That's pretty neat. So anyway, fireball is not a spell you want to get hit by at all. You would not survive it. It would be a very bad day. Let us know down in the comments what other spells or enemies or items, whatever, from Dungeons & Dragons or Baldur's Gate 3 that you would like to see covered in this series. Let me know if you learned anything. Let me know if I left anything out of this amazing presentation. And as always, travelers, I am glad you got to see me. Do your best to stay alive out there. Until next time, see ya.